see what happens, I guess.
Yep.
Well, there I am. I can see myself, so that part seems to be
Well, that's
working.
good. If it's not throwing a bunch of errors, then we're probably
Well,
good to go.
it says it has an excellent connection. So we had fun. We had to change computers in order to do this today because hubby's hard drive in his computer that we've been using went and died on us, so we had to order a new one. So we're hoping that we have this set up all correctly and that everybody will be able to hear and see me without a problem. So if there's any issues, let me know. We're waiting to see. We have a couple of people who've shown up already. And since I had so many varied questions on the last video on making pacts with spirits, I figured that'd be a good subject for us to continue and talk about. Since that's one of the reasons I do those shorter videos, is so that I can see what kind of questions people actually have and what they want to know and what I haven't made clear and all the other stuff. So Happy New Year. First Sunday of the year. We had one heck of a windstorm last night, so I didn't get that much sleep because of it. Sounded like they were trying to knock the house down a couple times. So let me know when you're here so I can say hi to everybody and make sure this is working. If it's not, I have to go drag husband back in and say, hey, what's up? Come and help. I think he's going to be popping in and out anyway, just to make sure, since this is one of those things. Well, someone send us a like, so
Cool.
So far no questions yet, but I was telling him about that windstorm we had last night. My. That was very exciting. Quite the windstorm. Hey, Liv. So is everything working good? Now that I can see that there's people there, so we have the chat functions functioning. Yay. I know a few of you said you were going to have a bunch of questions for me today on that whole thing. Sunny says, Happy New Year. I don't have any questions yet. I'm sorry. That's okay. We can just talk about stuff, and that's fine. Yep, working fine. Can hear well, too. Midnight says hi. All right, awesome. Because you never know when you're having to use a different computer, if you've got the settings right and everything else with the whole hard drive failure that we had on Ian's laptop. So that's good. I noticed that there were a lot of different kinds of questions on the last video, which were questions I hadn't anticipated, because it never dawned on me that somebody would think that they're like guardian spirit or higher self or whatever people call that might, be one of those spirits you're accidentally making a pact with, because that's definitely not in the category of the kinds of spirits you would have to worry about. Because those are your personal guides, and that's kind of what they're there for. That's what they do. That's why they're around. It's kind of their job description. And I think the same goes for like angels, guardian angels, or spirits that are that have our best interest in mind, generally speaking, to start with, aren't going to let us go down that path with them. They're going to find ways to warn us about it and say, no, that's not what we're up to, that's not what you want to do. Of course, we may or may not listen. That's our free will thing talking. But in general, those aren't the kinds of things you have to worry about. It's more of becoming imbalanced when you're not balanced with yourself, and you're not developing those healthy boundaries in your life. Then it's difficult to develop healthy boundaries with spirit beings and so forth. So Shaney says, how do I know if there are any fae around me? Well, I imagine that's going to come out in different ways for different people. When I'm walking through the woods, one of the ways that I know that they're there is I smell mint when I'm outside when there's no mint around. And sometimes I hear little tinkling laughter, sounds and stuff. And then I have this feeling about inside of me that just feels joyful. Midnight says, around 50 minutes ago, I felt an intense presence here in my home. I felt like it was trying to communicate with me because I had ringing in my ear for like 5 to 10 minutes. It's gone now. What should I do if it comes back again? Well, I say meditate with it and, make sure that you're consciously aware of what you're doing when you do that and see what it has to say. Remembering that not all spirits are helpful and some spirits can lie. There's always that. It might have something in particular it wants to tell you about, but always use your own discretion and your intuition when it comes to what you think it means and that kind of thing. Midnight says, I was a little scared but mostly interested. Shawnee. Okay, so it's not Shaney, it's Shawnee Brown. Hi, Shawnee. Sorry. It's hard to tell from just how things are spelled. So Shawnee says, are there winter fae, like snow biome ones? There's fae around all the time. I mean, they exist in a different realm, so the weather really doesn't have anything to do with whether they're around or not. The evergreens are alive throughout the entire year, and so they're definitely a source of energy as far as that goes, and are always having some activity around them when that happens. So I don't know. Midnight says, thank you, Siofra. I didn't feel the most pleasant, but not evil either. Well, sometimes intensity, if it's a strong energy, can feel a little bit overwhelming, and that's just one of those things. As you become more used to different levels of energy and interacting with it, then it doesn't feel as intense later when you adapt and adjust to that kind of thing. Liv says, do you make any of your own tea to help healing? Well, I have studied herbs since I was in my 20s, early 20s, and so I've done a lot of healing teas and things like that. With my children, when I raised them, we used herbs for most of our medicinal needs. We didn't go to the doctor that often, especially when we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and it was like 20 miles to get to the nearest doctor's office. And so I don't have a particular one. It would depend upon what our needs were. So I don't have a recommendation specifically for a tea. So Shawnee says, thank you. Ever encountered any evil fae? No, I have not encountered any evil fae. I really don't think there is such a thing as an evil fae, not in the definition of good versus evil. That's a human conception. There are fae that have negative things that they take care of, like composting, getting bugs to go to a corpse in order to break it down, letting the rest of the forest creatures know what's going on, storms, winds, hurricanes, that kind of stuff, trying to warn the creatures that they're there to take care of. And their aspect, the way they look, we might not consider beautiful or pleasant, because when you're looking in the spirit world, things actually appear as what they do and where they're at. So if you were a spirit that took care of decomposing, helping to decompose materials and so forth, you probably wouldn't look light and airy. You would look darker, and our perception of that, we might think that it was bad. So that's like a human interpretation of things, I'd say. So Liv says, I really want to work with deities, but I have no idea where to start and what to offer or how to know if I have offended them. Well, first off, they don't offend very easily. I mean, really, why would they? If we make mistakes, especially when we're just trying to start out and do new things, it's not like they're not like Jehovah, let's say. I mean, he apparently is easily offended. He's offended by absolutely everything, and he's pretty clear on what offends him. So, if you're doing research into deities, look into their mythology and their history and maybe the culture that they were around to get an idea if they're like that. But generally speaking, if a deity picks you, it's not going to be one that's going to be offended by you. Otherwise, it wouldn't be attracted or interested in you as an individual.
May I add something?
Sure.
The fact that Kali, though on appearance is fierce and horrific, that's all appearance. It said that she scares away the Pashus, which is the unenlightened people, so it's looks that way but isn't.
So she weeds out the ones that really aren't for her.
Yes.
By her appearance. Yeah. Yeah, so every group of deities is going to have different things to it. But like, if you decide you're going to make an offering and then you don't make the offering and you forget, it's not like they're going to come down with lightning bolts and smack you upside the head. I have a thing where most mornings I do a poem that I really like to Aurora. She's kind of like a personal goddess energy for me. But if I forget even for a week at a time, it's not a problem. When I remember and it comes back up, then I do it again. And that's just the way our relationship is. Shawnee says, when was my first Fae encounter? Well, I was a kid, so I don't remember exactly because I always knew that they were around, and I saw sparks and energy and that kind of thing, and I saw angels and other spirits, and it's just sort of how I was. I was born that way. So, so it's I don't have a direct memory. The first time as an adult that I saw them with my eyes wide open and just awake, and saw them as if they were physically there was when I was in Santa Cruz, that, someone was there to see them with me, and we both witnessed it. But I certainly have seen them and felt them many, many times. I just have a natural affinity for them and them for me. So, a Primera Rosinia, sorry if my pronunciation's all off here. Is it necessary to work with deities to be a witch? No, it does not. It is not a requirement to be a witch, because nature spirits, nature itself is like animism. It's like working with the forces and the energies of nature. You don't have to encounter or have anything to do with deities. Some people do, some people don't. And it's not, when it happens, if it happens to you, at that point it's not a matter of belief, it's just sort of becomes a functional reality. Because when they do come and make their presence known, it's kind of like impossible to ignore. At least in my personal experience, that's the case. So, Junie says, do you have any advice on listening to your intuition better? I think that there's Fae in my backwoods, but I'm not sure. Well, if you have nature around you, you're going to have Fae, so I'm not sure what you think you need your intuition for. I mean, they're a part of our biosphere. They're just an invisible part of our biosphere. They're everywhere. They just exist, kind of like the elements are everywhere and in everything. So, search Pinto, please. I'm not sure what that means. Liv says, do you do any spell jars? I haven't really done one for myself, but I helped a friend do a spell jar. And it worked extremely well. It was a honey jar. It was to help. I think that the spell jars are to help you focus on the situation that you're in and get assistance from, in this case, in her case, we got assistance from a couple of planetary influences and so forth, as well as some personal elements and that kind of thing. So each one ought to be different. There's no real formula that says you have to do it one way or another. But if you're going to make a spell jar, I don't recommend making a make someone love you jar, personally, because then you're sort of messing with a bunch of things that could backlash on you later. Midnight says, have you or Ian ever done a spirit evocation with a magic circle, wand, etc., summoning one? Yes, we have. And to the point of attempting to have a physical manifestation, materialization, we didn't succeed at the materialization part, but we definitely succeeded at the communication with the spirit being, and it was a huge, long ritual kind of thing. J.O. says, hello, Siofra. For about 3 times that I found myself in this situation, I started to feel so cold and started to shake so much that I could barely move to my room. I felt this presence, but I couldn't understand what it was. It took me 20 minutes to get to my room. What could possibly be? Well, it could be a ghost. Cold spots are often associated with ghosts, and the reason why cold spots happen is because in order to try and communicate, they pull energy out of the space that they're in. And so the taking heat is one form of energy, and taking energy from the living is another way of doing it. So you might want to wear some protection, like something to shield yourself, and do a little bit more of that kind of stuff, so that if you encounter it again, or when you encounter it again, you might get cold, but it might not make it so difficult for you to move. Okie Boy says, hello, are there any spells that sea items like seashells are particularly good for? Anything to do with a water spell, I would imagine. Well,
also that goes for like friendship and stuff too.
Right. I mean, it just really depends upon what you're trying to accomplish and what your traditions might be and where you live and that kind of thing. What is the best way? Oh, wait, back to Joa. I felt this presence, but I couldn't understand what it was. Oh, yeah, I answered that part. What is the best way to connect with the elementals? Well, I would say that you would want to do a meditation on each element individually. So if you're going to work with air, you need to understand the nature of air. So going to a place where there's a fair amount of wind, for example, or outside where there's a lot of fresh air, and breathing it in and understanding some of the things that move through air and how subtle air is, because it's invisible, but we can feel its effects. You go through each one of the elements and slowly become acquainted with each one. So that's what you do for that.
Yeah, try to get an internal contact.
But yeah, in the beginning, though, just a basic understanding of that process to start with, and then meditations and so forth. Okay, so let's see. Got that one. Got that one. Midnight wants to know, was it an Enochian spirit that you summoned? No, it wasn't. We haven't done those yet. It was a spirit being from the earth plane out of Franz Barden's book. And I don't remember the individual's name, but there was a specific purpose. I briefly talked about Barden's book on with all the sigils and descriptions of spirit beings in them on the last video, because if you're going to work with spirit beings, it's good to get an acquaintance of what their job description is, and it has all the spirit seals and so forth in the book. And so we were doing it for a purpose. We don't just randomly try and summon spirits for, our own fun and edification at this point. Most of our magic is sort of around current situations and what we might need help with or get more information about. So J.O. says, thank you. Okay. Sunny or Suni says, okay, thank you so much for your answer. Sorry for the confusion. Well, that's okay. I'm easily confused. Midnight says, what was that like? Were they friendly? Well, we wouldn't have asked to talk to them if we didn't think that they were friendly. That's the reason for having a description of their nature. So
And by the way, Barden only lists the friendly ones.
yeah, but not all of them are like safe in the sense that you might not accidentally make a pact with them if you ask
Right,
them for
right.
help. So in the description, there's a lot of them that are described as this particular spirit likes to help the magician learn things, and it's sort of like their job, and there's no debt incurred in asking them for help. And so, that it
Unless you try to get them to do something material.
right, unless they
Themselves.
volunteered to do that or something. That's kind of the way that works. And it was interesting because, like, I'm the clairvoyant. Ian is developing his clairvoyance more as far now, but when we did the first one before we moved over here, I think it was before we moved over here, wasn't it? I could see the spirit. We were doing the traditional one where we had the circle and then the triangle outside of the circle to help the being manifest itself down into, fill the room with the color light for the earth zone spirits, and we're working on creating an environment that was proper and comfortable for the being we were trying to connect with, then calling the spirit to come, and I could actually see it coming down into the triangle and pulling energy in and trying to form, and Ian couldn't see that, and
I can feel it.
yeah, but he actually didn't wait long enough. But we did get a response in any event, even though we didn't get the physical manifestation, and it agreed to help us with our need at the time. And Ian could feel it when he put his wand into the triangle. He felt this. I saw the spirit grabbing the wand, and he felt it grab the wand. So it was very interesting, actually, and very different. So Teresa says, I keep getting visits from birds. I had a blue heron on my deck without being close to a water source, and a hawk that landed on a tree right by where I'm walking.
Awesome.
Owls, etc. What could it mean? Well, it could mean that birds like you. It sounds like that to me. The crows like me, and lots of other birds like me too. So
Had a hawk on our fence.
yeah, we did. We had a Cooper's hawk that flew down twice and sat on our gate, or on the archway right over our gate, and just sort of sat there and sat on our fence. And I'm sure that the other birds that were visiting our yard were not too happy about it. Of course, they were not there at the time when the hawk came down to have a sit. And I think that people that are, naturally, they have a natural affinity for nature. Nature has a tendency to feel more comfortable around them in various circumstances. So, maybe birds want to talk with you. That's awesome. Liv says, a little off topic, but do you believe in ghosts? That's a pretty funny question considering all my videos about them. Yeah, that would be a yes. I believe in ghosts. I've encountered a whole bunch of them, and I can help them cross over and open up a portal between the worlds so that they can get to where they need to be. So, yep. Marco says, hi, Siofra. Teresa says, oh, about the birds. That makes sense, yes. So Marco says, I've been trying to astral project, and I've had a few odd experiences. I woke up in my bed but couldn't move and heard a man breathing in my room, and he started to growl. Any idea what this could mean? You might have been having a waking dream at the time you were coming back.
Well, also, aside from that, the not being able to move thing, there's a state that you're almost astral traveling, but you're not quite there yet. But if you have the awareness to be astral traveling, then you can get in that state briefly before you get out. So
I think
because
he's
you're
more
still
concerned.
aware at
Yeah.
a point when your body would normally be asleep.
I think he's more concerned about the growling sound.
Well, yes,
Yeah, which would be
just to say.
unpleasant and sort of unnerving, but it's hard to tell. I mean, really, um, if you want to astral travel, it might be better to do it when you're not sleeping, but to try to do it when you're awake during the day, and then you have a little bit more control, and then you might not get into that paralytic state, because your body's in a different position and that kind of thing. Yes, sleep paralysis is what it's called. Devil Blue says, hello, Siofra, Happy New Year. Hope all is well with you guys. When is your birthday? Since you mentioned it is soon. Yeah, it's in 2 weeks. I'm going to be doing a live show on my birthday. So, not next Sunday, but the Sunday after will be my birthday. So that'll be fun. Hi, Siofra, your hair looks so pretty. Thank you. I decided to do something different. I tried using one of my combs, but it fell out before I could get out the door, so I changed it up a little bit just to be different. Shawnee says, morning time is best to astral project because your mind isn't tired. Yeah, I would agree with that if you're going to do it on purpose. And then there's the difference between astral projecting and mental projection. So, I mean, the paralysis situation sounds more like astral projection because you're much more disassociated with your physical body when you're in the astral plane. Mental projection would be more just sending your mind out somewhere, and then you can stay with your body at the same time, so it's a little safer to do. And you can get a lot of stuff done in the mental planes as well as the astral. Devil Blue says, woo! Yes. Well, no. We're not having a party in here. Except I'll be, talking to you guys, so that'll be like having a party, right? What kind of birthday questions could they come up with, I wonder? Midnight says, I saw a description of a Goetta spirit that said it can help you recognize the language of birds. How does that manifest? Would you just suddenly understand the chirping we commonly hear? Well, there's a lot of stories about understanding the language of birds. And I would assume that would be what would happen, is that you would start to understand what they were talking about. Of course, a lot of stuff they're talking about is probably like food, fun. I mean, I'm thinking, but if they wanted to communicate a message or something like that, there are times when I'm driving around and crows will do something different than ordinary, and I'll go like, okay, like they're trying to they're saying I'm going in the right direction, or maybe I need to watch out depending on how they act. So I would assume that would be the case with that, since I haven't worked with that particular spirit. I don't know for sure.
I haven't worked with it, but that one's, what you get is the way you understand the language of things. It's like a like a picture language, or however, if you
like telepathy.
If you happen to hear like voices or whatever, and it turns into something you comprehend. I mean, so yeah, it's like that, if that adds to.
Well, I think it does, because I mean,
trees can talk to you, but they don't use speech.
Right, and I've had trees talk to me and give me information, so and rocks as well.
Yes, same kind of thing.
And it's not word language. It's more the whole image and a feeling associated with the image, and then the knowing, not clairvoyance. It's, what's the word?
Clairsentience.
That's it. The clairsentience, right, is the development of the clairsentience. So then you know what it means. You may not be able to explain it to anybody else, of course, but hey. Francesca says, hi, Siofra, do you have any advice on how to feel less scared and more comfortable with ghosts? I had some experiences in the past, not so many lately, but I always get so spooked when it happens. Well, first off, you need to know that they can't hurt you unless you let them. I mean, you're in control, you're in charge. if you don't know that you're in control and you're in charge, that's one of the reasons for getting scared. The unexpected and the unknown is something that we're hardwired to jump about, because our bodies are like, as an animal, the animal part of us is always looking for potential hazards and dangers, and being startled does not necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It just means that's what your body is doing, and as you have more experience with it, then you get less startled by what happens. So familiarity definitely helps when it comes to that. And then having natural authority and knowing that you can tell them to stop, go away, and then learning your craft, learning how to cast a circle, learning how to put up shields, and knowing that your energetic shields work and function well, and nothing can get in if you're worried about being influenced by a spirit, ghost, or what have you. I'm not sure exactly if it's I don't know what the heck this is and what it might think and do, or if it's I don't want to see it, or if it's just like, is it going to get inside of me and do something to me and take me over? If you could be more specific about the fear itself and what that is, that can help you narrow down what you need to do in order to help with that. Okay, what was this? Midnight says, Ian, could you repeat that one more time, please? The mic cut off at certain times about how understanding how language works. Maybe you should sit a little closer to the mic so it can pick you up.
Oh, well, there's not too much to say. It's just that since you're trying to get into contact with a being,
language of birds and understanding them.
I know, I'm just caught off guard, so now.
Yeah, I know. Being put on the spot.
So, yeah. So the spirit being that causes that. So what would happen was you would reach a state where you would be able to comprehend what the bird was saying in this specific example, but not as words or images, but you would get a concept, because these beings that don't have a physical language to speak, they do communicate through what Barden calls the metaphorical language. So my guess is if you got that to work for you, it would work that you would gradually, and I wouldn't think it would be instantly in most cases, but that you would gradually gain that ability from working with that being.
Okay. Hopefully that came through. All right. So Devil Blue says, I always learn something new of what I kind of wanted to know without knowing how to even begin asking. Well, we like that. The serendipity, synchronicity kind of thing, where somebody out there is worried about something or wanting to know about something, and then all of a sudden I start talking about it. Happens around me a lot. So I always like that. Great. So Teresa says, I started candle meditation, and as I drifted, my eyes closed and I immediately saw a door. It startled me and I snapped out of the trance. Was this my third eye opening? Well, seeing a door probably would be an opening of your third eye. Your clairvoyant vision is like that, where it's again metaphorical in some cases. The spirit world translating from the body to the spirit realm for a ghost is often seen as a door, so I'm not sure what the door might mean, but so let's see. Thank you, Ian. Midnight says thank you. He appreciated that. So Desideratum says, hey there, sorry if someone asked this question before, but I'm curious what god is related to the tarot. Okay, so I discovered that I remembered that incorrectly, and Ian says that it was a reference that he found in one of Crowley's books where there was a spirit associated with every tarot card.
Yes, the
and
major trumps.
the major trumps, not all 70.
Right, right. So, and there was one spirit.
So the 22 spirits associated with the major arcana. And he's not sure where the information actually came from originally. We haven't been able to source that. So we'll have to find it if we're going to share that information with people. And we have an entire bookcase of Crowley's books, so it may not happen very soon as far as that goes. And Shawnee says that, yes, it did. I was thinking about astral projection right when you started talking about it. Okay. So Ophelia says, I have a very important question. This has been a month from hell. My father is in the hospital, and we don't know what's going to happen. Every day is torture. I've been doing healing spells for him and working with my personal spirit tribe. I did make a pact with them. I made it clear that I need him to be healed, but I don't want anyone else to be hurt in the process. Okay, do you think that in order for spirits to save his life, something bad has to happen to someone else?
Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. Reiterate. That whole idea that all magic has a cost, and if you do something positive, something negative has to happen in order to balance it out, I think it's just a total crock.
A lot more accurate to look at it like it's energy shifts. Energy shifts this way, energy shifts that way.
The other thing, as far as healing and that kind of thing goes, is life wants to exist. Life wants to improve the quality of life. It's sort of an impulse that the energy of life has. And you don't have to have anti-life in order to balance it out. It doesn't work that way. You can use that concept to decide whether something you do is good or bad, as far as whether it increases life or takes life away. So if what you're doing is trying to increase life, it doesn't mean it's going to necessarily work, because if there are factors involved, because we're limited beings in a third dimensional reality, even though we have special abilities, doesn't mean that we know everything and why everything is happening. We do our best. But if there's some kind of a larger event that's taking place that's out of our control and out of our influence, then things will happen as they're going to happen regardless of what we do. So that's something to keep in mind. That helps. So Teresa said thank you from previous thing. So, all right, we did that, the bad. Not. The Devil Blues says the Desideratum. I literally wanted to ask this because Ian is present but held back. They're very happy that you're here right now. Ophelia says, sorry, I couldn't type it all at once. That's okay. Marco says, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Others, but the ghosts see the living in their house as ghosts and don't know they're dead. Is this possible? Do some ghosts not know and could be confused? Yes. I've encountered any number of ghosts who don't know that they're dead. It's not an uncommon scenario. And the people that they can see, if they can see you clearly, it's because you're a clairvoyant and you have a natural light that they can notice. So people like us have a tendency to attract human ghosts especially, because they're looking for that light to cross over, even if they don't know that they're dead, and they can see that similar light in us. And we're often sort of like a doorway as well. And so the reason why most people encounter them when they're quiet, when they're in bed, trying to sleep, or they're the only person that's around, is because that's when we are still and less distracted. Most spirits have a hard time communicating with us when we're wandering around, doing dishes, watching TV, and being active and having our mind engaged in certain activities. So we are literally distracted from all of that at that point. So when you lay down to go to sleep and you're not moving, it's like, oh look, there's this thing here. Let me have a look at that. And they're drawn to that. And when you encounter a spirit that doesn't know that it's dead, the only way you can help them move on is to let them know that they're dead. But it helps to find out why what they think they need to do. Usually they feel that they have something they have to do too, as well as not knowing that they're dead. It varies. I had a case in town where I found what the ghost hunters call a residual haunting of a woman who died in a fire. She died from smoke inhalation, and I could see her in the corner of this room. And she was there still waiting to be rescued. She did not know that she was dead. But she was also kind of stuck in time, and she wasn't aware of me. Because of who I am, I was able to actually change my energy field until I could get a response from her so that she could see me. So I don't know if I traveled in time with my energy or what. I just kept experimenting with changing my energy, how I was feeling about stuff until I got a response. And at that point, I could tell her that she had died. She died in like the 1950s, I think it was. And then I could help her cross over. It's difficult to help a ghost cross over if they don't know that they're dead and they don't know where that they're supposed to be going. And then the second part of that is showing them where they're going and reassuring them that where they're going is a safe place. There have been a number of encounters with spirits that are afraid to cross over because they're afraid of the unknown like everybody else, and they don't know what's over on the other side. And some are afraid going to hell and, being punished for their perceived failings in life. So let me look back here. Yeah, that was the others. So Taylor says, what's the subject? What's the topic? Well, apparently at the moment it's ghosts, but we were also talking about pacts of spirits. Marco says, yes, the one person they could see in the movie was the grandma who was a psychic. Yeah. I remember seeing that movie, and I knew exactly what was happening when it started. I thought, these people are ghosts because they, keep opening up the windows, and they're like, they got to close the curtains. And I'm like, yeah, I figured that they were the ghosts before they let us know. Desert Doradum says, thanks for your answer. I've always felt like there's an underlying sentience whenever I read tarot. That's the same no matter what deck I use. It's like collective consciousness. Any thoughts on it? Well, it's a divinatory system, and it has a long history of stuff. And as a divinatory system, the whole point of it is to tap into that collective unconscious of everything, as well as universal knowledge and that kind of stuff. So I would say, yeah, why not? Okay. Ophelia says, much appreciated. Violet says, hello, sorry I'm late. Phone call with relative. Well, welcome. I'm glad you made it. Connie says, can you see people's auras? Well, I feel their auras for sure. And sometimes, lately I've been able to start seeing colors on my aura. And I practice, or I should say I used to practice seeing other people's auras, like going out to lunch, which hasn't happened in a while since we're in the middle of a pandemic. But, I see the auras around trees and that kind of thing. So I guess that's a yes most of the time. I have to make myself. Okay, Ian has to leave, so he's going out the door. Siofra, in your latest video, you mentioned others seeing you in the astral without your direct volition or doing. I dreamt you were in my living room pushing my entire bookcase into my desk. Well, I hope I wasn't there actually pushing your bookcase into your desk, but if so, I apologize ahead of time. Who knows? But, yeah, that was when I was younger, though. I haven't had too many people say that now. But, yeah, I do a lot of, wandering through the solar system at night and whatnot. Last night I dreamt about David, which was weird. It's like I haven't dreamt about him in forever, and he was still in a cabin somewhere in the woods. So, yeah. I wondered, what the heck is that about? So Desideradum says, I remember astral traveling to the Twin Towers in New York City and counseling spirits that were there that refused to believe that they were dead. That's interesting because I had exactly the same thing. We must have been on the same psychic emergency response team, because that's what I did for about 10 days. And every night I would be in the towers, and the towers would still be standing, and there'd be people walking down the hall, and I'd stop one of them, and I'd ask them their name and what they did and who they were, and then I'd tell them what had happened, and I'd call the spirit guides from the other side or relatives or whatever to assist them in crossing over. So I find that really interesting that I'm not the only one that had that happen. That was a very strange time. I actually had to I wore all silk after that event for a couple of weeks while I was dealing with the emotional turmoil as an empath. And I even wrapped my head in silk to help me cope with it. It dampened it down enough that I could function and, like, go and do my clients and stuff like that in my office. But yeah. Taylor says, from understanding, not all demons are bad influences. Would you know any misconceptions or general information? Well, I mean, the word demon is from the word daemon, which meant spirit. My personal take is if it has a negative position on everything, then I'm not interested in working with it. So I pick, just like I pick my friends, I pick the spirits that I'm interested in working with and make sure that they're compatible with my energy. Speaking of the unknown, what is on the other side? Well, when you go to the other side, when you're dead, it's whatever your life was, whatever was in your head. All of your thoughts are made manifest and all of your emotions are there. I mean, I remember some of that stuff from my event when I had my soul shattered into a million pieces. I remembered all my deaths. And so that's one of the reasons why it's a good idea to clear your mind as much as you can in the life that you're in, so you don't have that. But that movie, What Dreams May Come, that is probably the best thing I've seen about what it would be like. Everyone's afterlife is going to be individual and different for them specifically, and each one that I've seen when I've opened up a door to the other side has been different. It has had a different look. It's wherever you are expecting to go. So if it's the Summerlands or some other version of the afterlife, depending on what you're following, that's what you're going to find, generally speaking. How do I channel my powers? I'm super healthy. I take Irish moss in Shilajit, whatever that is. And all my chakras are open, so I'm pretty sure I'm ready to tap in. Well, just practice. I don't know what you mean by how do you channel your powers. What kind of powers? Like, you go out and encounter people. I mean, I never know when I'm going to run into something. I go to a workshop and walk into a restaurant that's haunted and end up in their bathroom crossing spirits over without their knowledge because, they didn't believe they were haunted or didn't want to talk about it. I mean, wherever you are, if you're awake and you're present, then, I don't go looking for specific things to do. I let the universe bring me stuff. If it crosses my path, then I'll have a look at it and decide if it's something I'm comfortable with doing or something I think I can do something about and I feel competent, then I'll do it. Or I'll let it go by because it's not the right time for me. So it's like being alive is channeling your power. So I'm really not sure exactly how to answer that question. Madame Isadora says, I had a dream where my mom told me to work with the goddess of change. I am interested in working with deities, but I'm worried about becoming indebted. How can I prevent creating debt with deities? With most deities, you can't really create a debt because as pagans and witches, we don't work for a deity, we work with a deity, and you have a relationship. It's kind of like think about the relationships that you have with people. There's an exchange of energy. You help each other out. You ask each other for help when you need it. If people are inclined, they assist you. If they're not, and if they've got good boundaries, they say no. I mean, it's really not any different than that. And so it's the only time you get into that situation where you're creating a debt is when you try to force a spirit to do something for you that probably shouldn't even be done, or try to get a spirit to do something that's only for your benefit, and you're not putting any effort in. If they try to manifest, if the idea is they're going to manifest something for you in this reality without any effort on your part, that's where that kind of idea of debt comes in. Deities don't work the same way. They're not the same kind of energy. They're kind of far away from the day-to-day kind of stuff that we deal with. Have you ever summoned a demon? Well, not the traditional demon. No, I haven't. I don't see a reason why I would. So I haven't done it. And I don't think there's any of them that I'm particularly interested in, at least the descriptions of the ones that have the names, etc. Mary Death says, when you are astral projecting, is it possible to not make it back to your body? That's one of the potential hazards of actual, true astral projecting, because then you can, if something happens to your body, kind of get disconnected from it. But that's why most people see the silver cord. And that's why I recommend mental travel rather than astral travel, because it's safer. Midnight says, a neutral or good-natured one. Well, I don't do much summoning of any kind, so probably not. I mean, you know, I have visitors. The Fae come around and say hey, and I interact with some of my deities and some on a daily basis, sometimes monthly or what have you. It's like I don't feel the need to call anything to me, because it's kind of like, here's my world, and it's peopled by things that other people can't see. So yeah, summoning is not something we do often, except for that, you know, specialized thing that we described earlier with Ian. Let's see. Psychic emergency response team. Probably yes. The funny thing is I never did that consciously. I was brought there. Well, I knew I was doing it, so it was sort of conscious for me. Devil Blue says, interesting. You also mentioned spirits do not always tell the truth. Could there be trickster energy using familiar faces to confuse my vision during dreams? Are these hidden agendas to leech energy? Well, they certainly can be. So you need to definitely, you know, pay attention and use common sense when it comes to does this seem likely? And if you think that somebody's trying to leech your energy, again, we're back to the same thing. Grounding, shielding, boundaries. You know, it's like being in control and knowing your own energy can tell you whether your energy is being leached out somewhere else. And so it's all on, you know, us as the individuals to maintain our own space magically and spiritually and physically. It's like that's kind of the deal. So the better we can draw a circle, the better we can call the elements, the better connection that we have with those invisible forces. We're creating a reality that exists on the other planes. So then other spirit beings know who we are. It's sort of part of our calling card. They can recognize our abilities, and it can warn off people that are, you know, trying to mess with you, and they can go like, okay, yeah, leave that person alone, because they're just not going to be any fun. And then as you build up your own core of energy and your abilities, that law of attraction really works a lot stronger than you would think. And so, like, I don't worry about negative spirits in particular at all, because my energy is not tasty to spirits that are looking for a different kind of energy. So the kinds of spirit beings that I attract are going to be ones that are attracted to my energy, to my bubble nature, bubbliness, whatever. And so, you know, that's going to determine my encounters with the universe. And so that's up to me to bring that into myself, so that that's what I come across. I don't know how else to explain that, but so lots of viewers today. Yay! Can humans become gods? Well, that all depends upon your point of view of what a god is. Gods are a little bit different than people. They're not a human spirit, so, you know, I don't know that I would want to. I mean, if I chose to leave the human continuum, as it were, and just go run off with a deity, I suppose it would be a possibility. On one sense, we are gods, like, we have the 5 elements, so that gives us a bit of an edge over other life forms when it comes to the energetic stuff. We're different in that sense. It's sort of a weird thing to try and think about because it depends on one's definitions a lot of, what does that mean kind of thing. Are all deities real? I'd think it's a mix, some real, some made up. Well, there's some made up ones that are really real too, because you can create gods. That's the thing. And certainly there's some religions that are really good at creating houses for gods and bringing the energy in. Voodoo, Santeria, the African religions and stuff like that. And they've done a really excellent, they have a good method for drawing in and pulling in that energy and then making it very effective. So it's going to depend. Oh, Madame Isadora says, so helpful. I'm glad. I don't even know what I've said at this point. Desideраtum says, the afterlife's being individual. Yep, that feels right. And yes, the movie What Dreams May Come really hit home for me. Yeah, that was a very good movie. One of my favorite movies that they've ever made. Mary says, hi, Siofra. We had so much fun making witch balls, socially distanced, but my friend held hers up and it broke immediately. Do you know what that means? She's making a new one. Was it made out of glass? Because mine was plastic. I don't know what it means. But make a new one. Yes, definitely. Devil Blues, thank you so much. Amy on the porch in the garden. Well, that's an interesting handle. I can feel auras, but what should I do to practice actually seeing them? Okay, so to get clairvoyant vision, the ability to see things that aren't physically there, the process, we call it softening of the eyes. And there's a lot of ways of practicing that. You want to do it in dim light. You want to, you can start off with your own hand. You can look at your hand and you look past your hand. You don't look, you don't focus on the physical. If you focus on the physical, then that's what you're going to see is the physical. But you soften it and make it fuzzy, kind of like, out of focus. And then you look past it, and then you look to see if you can see like a field of energy around it. Sometimes if you like play with it and, sort of try and get it activated, then you can start to see the edges of it around that. And if you can, against something that isn't like busy, like a blank wall, I don't recommend white, but white might work for you. I can't have white walls because it makes me see too many things moving around. They pop up. But, so you just watch it and look at it and then let your eyes unfocus and you practice that. You can practice that with trees. You can, sit and look at a tree, and instead of trying to look at the individual leaves on the tree or the branches or whatever, you kind of look at the light and dark, the shadow and the light of the trees, and then focus beyond the tree and look at the edges. I really see energy coming from trees easily that way. So that's one of the methods that I have used. And it doesn't have to have a color. You can just see that it has a thickness. It's like the air is denser in one place that's closer to whatever you're looking at and not as dense farther away, and that's the aura. Because everything has an electromagnetic field. That's what the aura is. Anytime electricity moves through something, it creates a magnetic field. So people who do electronics know this. Whoops. Apparently I'm getting excited. And so, the body, we don't have the same type of electricity as goes through your wiring and so forth, but it's a chemically induced electrical impulse that travels through, the negative and positive ions throughout your body and send messages and stuff like that to your brain. So our whole body is constantly transmitting back and forth messages from our muscles to our brain and you know, the rest of our body. So we have a weak magnetic field. Everyone has a weak magnetic field if they're alive. And so that's animals. Trees have got their own form of communication that they do through their branches and stuff like that. So they also have that. And but it isn't just living things that we define as living, because certainly stones and rocks also have an aura around them, but it's a slightly different type of aura than the kind that we have. So you can like practice with your own aura, because if you take two magnetic fields and you push them together, they interact with one another, and then they start to get stronger, bounce off of one another. They can either repel or attract, depending, and you can literally feel that. So knowing that that's just there is one of the first steps to being able to see it and help you be able to see it, because belief has a lot to do with it. I mean, we have a part in our brain that says when we see something that we can't comprehend, it tries to make it invisible and turn it off, because you know that can't be a good thing, because we don't know what that is, or we're afraid of it because we don't know what that is and we want to get away. So we've got two different potential forces in there already automatically trying to keep us from experiencing things. And we, as pagans, witches, whatever, you know, do these exercises and so forth to help overcome that tendency and to create a belief system of experience, not just belief. It's not about faith for me. It's about I've done this, I've seen it, I've encountered it enough times that I know that there's something there and that it's real. But, you know, you have to open yourself up to that. So getting in touch with that inner child that knows that these things all are alive. I mean, most children believe that they're dolls and they are alive when they're not looking, kind of thing. And that's very similar to what the Hindus do when they enliven a statue. They look at a statue and see it as alive, and then the statue can move. There's certainly lots of stories about that. So just because something sounds kind of outlandish and unlikely doesn't mean that it isn't actually real, because if you have enough people that are feeding that belief reality or what have you, then things can actually manifest themselves. I think I went off topic, but there you go. Okay. Canary says, when I try to see the spirit realm, when I start to see things, my eyes start to hurt a little. I'm not forcing myself or anything. Is this common? Well, that could be the fighting the desire to focus onto reality and not see the quote-unquote unreal. And you might be straining your eyes a little bit instead of relaxing your eyes. You might want to think about how you're doing it when you're unfocusing. And it can take some practice to not be doing that to yourself. So that could be just literally what's going on, is that you're straining your eyes by trying to keep them out of focus and they're not used to it. Sunny says, I don't remember if you've talked about this before, but do you believe or know much about past lives? Well, yeah, I remember lots of them myself. And I don't recommend trying to find out what they were, because our point of being here is to learn from the one that we're in. And it's easy to get distracted with all kinds of ideas of what we might have done. But, I mean, if we're not doing it now, it's kind of like reading a history book and sitting on your laurels. And I mean, there's a potential there anyway. But if the memories come up, then that's a different thing. That means that you're ready to remember them and so forth. Devil Blue says, Siofra, what are your thoughts? Are we living in a collective matrix within 3D reality? You did mention guardians of this reality in your latest video. Well, not exactly. Well, the guardians at the threshold are not the same thing as guardians of this reality. It's kind of a well, yes and no. It's one of those weird things. a lot of the Western magicians and some of the shamanic cultures talk about the guardian at the threshold kind of thing. And I definitely did have that experience where I was given the opportunity to leave this one altogether behind. But it wasn't the 3D reality I was leaving, it was the entire human collective of evolution through time and space that I would have left behind and been somewhere else, doing something else and stopping where I was and not continuing on my path of evolution. So, I mean, reality exists and quantum reality, it doesn't exist. And, you know, there's all sorts of fun mind things that we can do with that. But, you know, the floor is going to be here, I think, whether I believe in it or not. I count on the fact that the floor is real, whether I think about it being real or not. So I don't know. I do believe that our ability to evolve as a society and as an individual is really determined by our willingness to accept new ideas and entertain the possibilities of other realities, and not getting stuck in dogma of one kind or another. But then if you're going to exist, you have to have some kind of a framework that gives you a sense of familiarity and safety. And so picking the framework at least that works for you and that doesn't separate you completely from everyone else seems to be the best approach to take. Lots of good ideas and thoughts flying around in my head. Let's see. Shawnee says, thank you. I just saw my aura. It was white. Okay. White's always a good color. Amy on the porch in the gardens is very helpful and informative. Marco says, I really love seeing magic and art. Do you have interest in any magical art? I personally love the Jork's music and visuals since they have very obvious and blatant magical influences. I do believe that art is an expression of magic, and it can be, and my art is in beading and stuff like that. So yeah, I like the idea and I like it. So Devil Blue says, fascinating, thank you for clarifying and sharing. Yeah, reality sort of morphs in and out all the time, doesn't it? But yeah, trying to maintain my connection to the earth itself is definitely part of what I'm here to do. Desideradum says, I call the auras around trees after images because I don't see a solid color, but like a shadow twin. Well, that's sometimes the case, but sometimes I've actually seen color too around them. I had an experience when we were at the cabin that was on the power spot when the full moon was coming up. I planned it to be there for the full moon because, you know, it's a really clear place and they don't have clouds like we do here all the time. And before the moon actually rose above the horizon, as it was just beginning to come out, I saw streamers, like silver, white, blue kind of streamers coming off of the tips of the trees, the branches, all the branches and stuff. And I could see these energy streams just going out like this and reaching up. And that's when I knew the moon was rising, because it was reaching for the moonlight. And then as the moon rose, I could see the the aura of the moon, and it was like violet and silver and vivid, and I could see the streams of moonlight coming down, meeting those threads of energy coming from the trees and then going down into the trees, and it was really quite remarkable. I'd never seen anything quite like that before. So it might depend on the time of day and the time of the month and what's going on as to what you might see. But in the beginning, just as after images is not a bad start. Canary says, I know Fae are real. Are there any other mythical beings that are thought of real, that have truth to them. For example, dragons, Loch Ness Monster, etc. Well, I have seen some dragons as spirit beings, so I know that they are real. As far as being spirits go, I don't think that they're physically real. I think that they're an energetic life form. And just because something doesn't have a body doesn't make it not real, you know what I mean? Because when I was younger, going to different planets in the solar system, I encountered beings on the different planets, and I knew that they didn't have physical bodies, but they had consciousness. So, taking out the idea that they have to have physical reality in order to be considered real, there's a lot of things out there that are actually real, but not everybody can see them, or not everyone encounters them, at least not now. I remember a time when that energy was easily visible. Like, you could see power spots, you could see the energy coming out of the ground and going up into the sky, like I did with the trees and the moon, except it was all the time, and you could see people's auras, and spirit beings were interacting with us on a daily basis. It was a common kind of occurrence, and we have moved away from that. So I'm thinking that there's the possibility that we could move back toward that at some point, and more people are exploring this as an option and trying to make connections with spirit beings or things that aren't necessarily physical but are still real. And I've met land guardians, I've met some ancient beings that had nothing to do with humans and were here before humans ever came on the scene. A couple of those that are pretty intense and interesting. So, and some of them don't even have any myths associated with them, I don't think. But anyway, yeah. Trini, you'll have to tell me how to say that. I haven't been able to see colors around people yet. I do see the energy field very easily. Yeah, and the colors can come later. I'm just seeing colors now, vividly for the first time, really with my eyes open, except when I was little, I could see them. So it's again, one of those brain things where you think it's a bad thing, it means something, you're not supposed to be able to see them and stuff like that. Have you ever considered putting together a compendium of your knowledge? People have asked me to do that, which is why I started this channel. Because everyone has said, you should write a book. And it's like, yeah, and I've started writing books and wrote my experiences down and stuff like that. But this seems to be a better way to get the information out, because then it's more topical or, in the moment kind of thing. And I have done so many things and I've had so many different experiences. It's the questions that people ask that pull them back up and out of me so that I know what I know. It's sort of hard to explain. But that's why we started this. That was really the main thing. I thought I really should share what I've learned with some more people, because it's just, so that's where we're at. Musing says, Siofra, have all of the lifetimes you have remembered been here on Earth as a human? I actually had a life as a Black Panther that I remembered spontaneously when I was at the zoo. I had another experience once where I remembered being a house, and I'm not sure how real that was or not, but I remembered I was the house. And remembered all the people that lived inside of me and how I felt about them. I have no clue about that. But most of the ones I remembered have been as a person, as a human of one kind or another. I did have a spontaneous memory of just before I was born in this life, which was interesting. I was very excited about remembering this. And I was a ball of light. And then there was a bigger ball of light. And I was wandering around the bigger ball of light. And the bigger ball of light was talking to me and said, you will remember everything you know until the time, you will forget everything you know until the time comes for you to remember. And when I woke up from remembering that, I was like, I remember that I forgot. I was so excited. So I guess I've been, ever since, slowly remembering what I was told to forget before I came. I mean, if you think about past lives, think about how complicated the life you're in right now is, right? And all the different things that have happened to you up until now, no matter your age. And if you brought all of that with you when you started off fresh the next time, you would be predisposed to all kinds of different attitudes, ideas, notions, things that you'd have already absorbed. You'd have programmed, experiences that have happened to you would program you in certain ways, and you wouldn't have a new experience. And so coming into a new body and forgetting all the other ones is an opportunity to start off fresh. Although there was one time I was wishing, when I was studying herbs and stuff like that, because I remembered being an herbalist in a cottage in the woods somewhere in Europe, that wouldn't it be nice if I could just remember all the stuff I'd already learned and not have to relearn it again. But yeah, I still had to relearn it again. New information, you never know. It's always good to relearn stuff. But when the other issue with past lives that can happen, whenever I met someone that I'd known in a past life, I thought that meant we were supposed to get together. And not necessarily at all. You still have to make up your own minds, and you still need to have good boundaries and make, decisions based on this life and the information that you have in this one. So yeah, there was a lot of confusion with all the stuff I remembered, trying to put things together and then take them back apart and, become an individual. I felt more like I was a group of people walking around rather than a person. So Devil Blue says, the aura of the moon, so beautiful. Speaking of, last night I was looking at the moon with binoculars on a tripod, and it had an ongoing Fata Morgana effect. Are these only disturbances in the air? I don't know what a Fata Morgana effect is, so you'll have to explain that to me. Desideradum says, ooh, could you tell us a little more about the sound of the sunrise you heard at the cabin? Yeah, that was interesting. It's sort of hard to describe because it's not like a loud, it's probably hearing the energy of the sun hitting the atmosphere or something like that. I don't know how to describe it except that it was both a sound and a feeling that I had when it would happen, because everything was so still. I mean, most of us don't live in a place where there's much stillness. There's always neighbors, people, cars, vehicle, just sounds, ambient noise all over the place. Living in a place that was, in the deep woods, there's sounds there, but, the creaking of trees moving in the wind, the animals scurrying and talking to each other and so forth. But under it, there's this intense, deep silence that just sort of permeates everything. And that is the grounding, that we all need to have more of. And within that environment, with no distractions and nothing else going on, I could start to feel the sun coming up. So it was pretty cool. Is that a copper sphere, and what can it be used for? Oh, I see what you're looking at. Are we speaking about this? This is a globe of the earth, and it is brass, and it is hollow, and we filled it with fluid condenser. And when we do our grounding, the sacred tree meditation and the healing chant, when we're done, at the end of that, when we're coming back to ourselves, we take the extra healing energy that we've raised and we put it into this globe to help heal the planet, to just give healing energy to the earth so it will go wherever it needs. And then when we're done with that, we put any excess into the earth just beneath our feet, below our temple. And so that's what we use this for. So I guess this could be a type of Vril-Stein, but, well, no, not really, because a Vril-Stein would be a place to store energy in order to use later. And this is more of a magical receptacle that we created to represent, in the law of similarities, to represent the planet and so we could have something to focus and put it on. So it has like all the continents and everything on there. And the fluid condenser maintains a charge, so every time we add more energy to it, it just gets stronger and stronger. And so that was the first thing we did. Started this a long time ago, quite a few years ago now, probably about 15 years ago at least, maybe more. Let me see, what year is it? Actually, it might be more. We've been here for a while. It was early on when we moved to the area. And goes this way. And so, collecting energy for dispersal later is certainly one of the things that we've done. These are like some of our long-term magical projects. I also created a globe, which is one of the floats, like the floats I showed in the making the balls, witches balls. I can't remember things. And I filled that with fluid condenser and charged that up to absorb energy coming from comets and things that haven't been on Earth. So like the energy from our solar system and collecting that to be used for something. I'm not sure what, but I've been doing that for quite a few years now too. That was after the Earth ball. And it was just one day it popped into my head. And I'm like, well, why didn't I think about doing this before? It's like, we have everything we need. I can do that. So I have a meteor mounted underneath the, I got one of those candle holders that has like the big round on the top and the little thing in the bottom or whatever. So I got the meteor underneath the ball, and then underneath all of that I have a pretty large piece of celestite that helps to charge that up. And whenever comets and things like that go by, it sort of absorbs some of their energy. I'm thinking that that's going to be used pretty soon. And then the amethyst healing, the amethyst crystal energy stuff that we do every month on the full moon, that is added to those two things. So it's like there's a sort of an unconscious awakening or whatever of energies to help. And that the amethyst crystal web is focused on peace, joy, and tranquility to try and help people. And we started that 2 or 3 years ago now, so just before the pandemic hit, and by 2 years, I think. And I think that's why that became something we were supposed to do. So sometimes you just sort of get this notion that you're supposed to be doing something. Okay, so Desiderum says, this has been one of the most interesting live chats. Well, I'm so glad. I enjoy them myself. Sunny says, I appreciate you doing this too. Thank you so much. Desiderum says, would be nice to have the cliff notes from past lives at least, just for continuity. Well, yeah, sometimes it can be helpful. Other times it's just not helpful at all. And there's this whole tendency. I have a friend who was in a really negative relationship in this life. I mean, we're talking, the guy was in the mob, and there was like, violence and a sexual nature, and I mean, just all sorts of horrific things was done to this woman. And she went to a psychic to get some clarity, and the woman told her that in a parallel Earth, everything was working out great. And I'm like, so who cares? If it's working out great in a parallel Earth, it's not helping you here right now. And I think that is a mistake. That's sort of like trying to make this situation okay because it's not like this somewhere else. It just didn't make any sense to me. So yeah, trying to stay grounded and clear is important. Francesca says, I'm loving this live stream concerning paganism. Excuse me, do you know anything about the green man and how to work with him? Well, the green man would be like a representation of the earth god, and he can come in different forms. I have a green man up there, sort of a representation of life force, the male life force energy throughout all of life. So working with them would be learning about the forces, male, female kind of forces or whatever that are in the universe that come together to create new life, and his aspect of it. I don't have anything specific, I don't think, just off the top of my head right now. So Devil Blue says it looked like static was around the edges of the moon, constantly shifting like an ongoing TV channel. Never seen this before. That actually sounds kind of like what I saw. Could it be only atmospheric disturbance or something else? I don't know. It could be that you were seeing the kind of energy that I was talking about seeing, and maybe the atmosphere helps us see it. Maybe it is just that, a visual effect, but I certainly saw it as an energetic one. Violet says, could you explain fluid condenser and how you do that, what it is made of, and how do you spread it, how do you charge it? Okay, so hopefully soon we're going to make another batch of fluid condenser. This is from Franz Barden's book again, and I can't remember which one. He only has 3 books. It might be in the evocation one, magical evocation. But in any event, we use the universal condenser because it's got all of the plants and stuff like that for any planetary influence or any elemental influence that you might be using it for. So you don't have to have like a separate one. It's called a fluid condenser, but it doesn't have to be fluid. There's like a solid form of it. Fluid in this sense means like a magnetic, energetic, that sort of interpretation to it. But the one we make is actually fluid. So I get confused because when I call it fluid condenser and I use a fluid, I think that's what they mean. But we have it on our website. Right now we don't have any available because we sold all that we had. And then when we make more, we'll put it back up there. And you just, you can paint it on something. I used it to create a guardian for my massage office. I found an angel card of just the back of an angel, which I thought was kind of unusual. And I bought that card because I charged it up with the fluid condenser to help people let go of their day-to-day difficulties when they came into my office so that they could get the most benefit from what I was doing, and like drop their thought forms and stuff like that, hopefully, to make them more open to receiving healing energy and whatnot. And so I have it on top of my door, like above the door jamb up there, facing outward. So it makes perfect sense to me because it's the back, it's facing that way. So that means that the front of the angel is on the other side of the door, and and it helps whatever charge you put on anything to be more specific and more solid and more charged up. We'll have to do a whole thing on charging, I think. Seems like it would be a good idea to know what it is that we mean by that, because I've seen some people in some of the pagan groups saying you cannot charge your crystals, you cannot charge your objects, and they are clearly thinking of something other than what I'm doing and what most of us are doing. But this thing has got about 30 different plants in it, I think. And it took a lot of research to figure out what plants, because the words that Barden used a lot of them were old words, and having to figure out what he meant by that, what was that actual plant. Because you'll find when you do research that there's a bunch of different things out there where they used to be called this thing, but now it's called this other thing, and then that changed into something else. And so if they call it by the original thing, you don't know what the heck they're talking about. It's a mess. And my husband's research into alchemy assisted us with that because he did a lot of alchemical stuff for a long time there, understanding what they were talking about and what terms they were using. But there's simple ones that you can make. So a quick and easy fluid condenser is just putting some chamomile in, steaming, make some chamomile tea, and you can use that as sort of a universal condenser for a lot of things to charge something up as a fast and easy way. It doesn't cover all of the elements, but it does a pretty good job for that. They're just things, substances that assist in making the energy you're putting into something stay in it and not just sort of leak out, I guess. Let's see, where am I? Tiffany says, I appreciate you doing this. I'm curious about perception of Abraham Hicks. Are you familiar? You'll have to remind me. I might have heard of him, but I'm not sure. Jason says, I love the physical representation. I generally use my mind's eye to send the energy, but I love the idea of receptacle for later use. Yeah, that's what I came up with, and I suggested we could do that. And then we went, there was like this giant flea market that went on for 10 miles. And we stopped partway through and walked up, and there it was. I said, could we use this? A lot of times Ian has ideas, and then I find the objects to make the ideas happen. So we work well together as a team that way. Devil Blue says, thank you so much for all the clarifications and sharing your time with us today. We appreciate it. Blessed be. Violet says, I don't feel actual charge in my body. Does that mean it is useless to try charging something? I may not have been practicing long enough to feel this yet. Well, yeah, we definitely need to do a whole thing just on charging and exactly how to do that and what we mean by it. And it could be that you're just not familiar with what it is. It's the subtle senses. I mean, our gross senses are obvious to us, like, our sense of touch. You can, clap your hands, you can rub your hands together, you can feel it when you grab something with your hands. And so you know that that's there. And energy is a subtle kind of a thing. You have to learn how to sense it. And it takes practice, because we get distracted by the gross stuff and have a harder time training ourselves to feel the subtle stuff. You have to have a charge or you wouldn't be alive. Life force is a charge. So by virtue of having a body, being alive, and having electrical impulses running through from one end of it to the other, you have a charge. And you're magnetically charged too. So, and charging an item, it's sort of like programming, giving it an imprint of, too much to try and go into in a short period of time, since we've already been at this for an hour and a half. And this is probably when I'm supposed to stop. I'm trying to be better at that. But this has been great. I really appreciated this. Tiffany says it is actually a woman named Esther Hicks who has been channeling. Oh, okay. So my friend told me about that, and I haven't read the information that was based on that. And I believe that manifesting takes more than just deciding that that's what you want. That's why magic has got a lot of things to it. Not just the intent. Intent is only one piece of the puzzle. And I, like I said, I haven't read the material. I know that the people who are promoting The Secret and so forth have eliminated her name from the books because nobody wanted to do the TV show or something like that in Australia if her name was associated with it. They thought it was too boo-boo. So, yeah. You have to decide for yourself. Didn't you use chamomile to make a quick fluid condenser? Yeah, I think that's what I said. That's what you can do. Use chamomile to make a quick fluid condenser. So, I guess we better get going here. At least this has worked really well, so that's good. And so we have an option. Because the last time we tried to get this to work on this computer, it didn't want to work. So apparently we needed to have the software updated until it worked on my system. So, yay. And you guys are so welcome. Thank you for getting me to think about all sorts of fun stuff. I love it. Keeps my mind sharp. It's always a good thing. And so we'll see you next week. And maybe the next video I should do is going to be on the whole process of charging and what we mean by that. You're welcome, Marinda. So, bye guys. Blessed be and have a good week. stay well and stay healthy.